John Maher here, and this is your weekly Grass10 update on the dairy edge. Well, despite cooler weather, grass grew reasonably well at 68 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day, which was quite good. To put it mildly, the average farm cover was 736 or 198 kilograms of dry matter per livestock unit. So demand was 59 on average kilos per hectare per day. The diet was made up of 15 kilograms of grass and 3.5 kilos of meal per cow per day on average now. But I suppose the concern here for us looking at the data is the pre-grazing yield, which was well above 1,600, which is of a concern and continues to be a trend. And if this trend was to continue, you are looking at cows grazing the wrong grass with higher stem proportion and dead material. So that's a concern. Dry matters were lower in the south at about 17% this week, south and west, but a bit higher in the east and north, around 19 or 20. But they are above average for the time of year. I suppose that's a reflection of the wind and the cooler weather. For this week then, the growth is forecast to be in the low 60s on average. However, with cooler weather, some of the recovery paddocks I would suggest might be a bit lower, but we won't know that until, I suppose, next week. But that is the story of where things are at the moment. No one's really short of grass, to be honest. Looking at the grass supply in more detail, over half the farms on PBI have a cover per livestock unit of greater than 190, or an average farm cover 790. Kilos per hectare and well over 190 kilograms of dry matter per livestock unit. And I suppose, again, back to this point about the pre-grazing yield of the average for this group, which is over half the farmers in PBI, is 1,700, which is just too high. Now, the problem here is this level of pre-grazing is now bringing more stem into the diet. And look, milk protein content, I suppose, would be the most sensitive to this thing more than anything else. And you do well to hold milk protein grazing that type of grass. I've actually seen a farm fall from 3.6 at the start of the week to the end of the week of about 3.5, or from last weekend. And this is simply down to pre-grazing yield when you're grazing above 1,700. Of concern. A third of farms on PBI had an average farm cover of 684 or 177 per livestock unit. Again, though the pre-grazing yield was well over 1,500, which is still too high. So I suppose it is the issue to be dealt with going forward for the next week to 10 days, with 90% of farms grazing grass above 1,500 kilos or more. So as we move further into May, then the grass composition is going to keep changing, and keeping grass quality will become more and more challenging. It's easier dealt with when it's tackled early, and as I said, too many farms are just grazing grass just too high in pre-grazing cover. We want things back at 1,400 kilograms. What happens here is this maximizes the leaf content because you're green from head to toe. It maximizes growth, and the cleanouts are much easier to achieve at 4 centimeters. I suppose from a cow point of view, what people don't understand is that when you're trying to graze stem, it's harder for the cow to do it. So they eat less, and whatever they do eat then is of lower quality and lower energy content. And then that has knock-on effects in terms of yield and particularly more milk protein content. So we're trying to get people back to, that kind of 18 to 21 day rotation. If you think about the numbers, if the average growth rate is 60, this week was higher by 20 days. That's an average pre-grazing yield of about 1,400, by the numbers. So just keep that in mind here. But with over 50% of farms still struggling with excessive grass supply and pre-grazing yields beyond 1,700, then action needs to be taken. I suppose really to replace the other feeds in the diet would be a good start, and try and get into the right grass, and to convert that surplus grass into silage, either long term or short term. I suppose I'm in more the short term camp myself, because this grass will come back to you, or these paddocks will come back to you sooner, and you're bringing in quality grass back into the mix into early June, I suppose. So this is particularly important, I suppose, when you review your silage situation. Again, another farm during the week in Kerry, 20 bales left over after the spring. So, like this farm converted 5 paddocks into bale silage. It all helps to keep the grass right and build up silage supplies, for next winter, next spring. Moving on to nutrient management then in May, I suppose. If the P and K story is done throughout April between fertilizer and slurry, then I'm not as concerned about nitrogen plus P plus K products. But ideally, the rotation now should follow with a nitrogen plus sulfur type product. I was on a farm in Limerick this week as well, which had lime applied after grazing. So a shout out to Jerry for doing the industry a big favour by reminding us all that lime can be spread in the mid-season. Now, to be fair to Jerry, he's good to graze out, so it's a grand clean sward to be applying. But it just a reminder us all that lime is important to get the best out of our nitrogen P's and K's from the soil. Any paddock that is cut for bales to fix surplus grass situation should really receive slurry or a compound fertilizer with sulfur. Every about 1,000 gallons of slurry will replace about 4 bales per acre in terms of the P and K removed. And going back to my lime story, the sward may be clean enough to take lime as well. So it's an opportunity to spread lime, particularly if the pH is wrong. Speaking of silage, then no harm to look at the silage situation for the farm, what's left in the yard, and what's required for the rest of the year. After a difficult spring, I wouldn't say silage stocks are in massive surplus. So there's a fodder budget available on pasture-based for those who want to do a bit more on the numbers. On to our feature farmer then, Killian Brennan from County Cavan. So Killian is milking about 111 cows with about 28% heifers. His current milk stats are 4.48% fat, 3.81% protein, so doing good to say the least. Kilograms of milk solids at about 2.3 per cow per day. The cow diet is made up of 70 kilograms of grass, 3 kilos of meal, and the breeding season begins, I suppose, May 15th. Look at the grass story then, I suppose, if that's all right. Average farm cover of 713, grew 56, demand of 59, 206 kilograms of dry matter per livestock unit, grazing 1420, which is good to hear. And that's getting about 90 units per acre of protected urea, the 38.07 product, and so it's also getting some sulfur. I suppose looking at dealing with surpluses and silage story, Killian will continue to walk the farm again this week and take out more surplus bales to keep grass quality quite right. I suppose that's the secret here. The more often we walk, the luckier we get. He has cut just under 20 acres. For bales this week, we'll apply slurry and protected urea after cutting, and I suppose those bales will do a good job to put quality silage inside in the yard. So that's the grass story as it was, and the fertilizer story. Just mentioned the clover paddocks on Kane's farm. He has some paddocks that have over 20% clover content, and will reduce to 10 units per acre of nitrogen from early June on, and every second round he will use watery slurry on those clover paddocks. Just in terms of reseeding then, 15 acres were reseeded already, which is good going in a late spring. They were sprayed off in early April. It was ploughed and seeded on the 28th of April, and he will graze those when the cover gets to about 800 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. So all in all, Killian's going well, despite a difficult and late spring. I suppose a reminder to us all about reseeding. While the year is running late, there is still opportunity to reseed. The return here is quite high and quite fast, to put it mildly. You'll have your money back within 2 years, and you could even make a case for having it back in a year and a half, despite the initial outlay of costs. But it keeps the farm moving forward in terms of providing fresh grass that grows better in the shoulders in the year, both spring and autumn, and in particular responds better to fertilizer, especially given the current uh, nutrient allowances that are tight on many farms. Speaking of reseeding, 2 events now in the week ahead. One in St. Johnston in Donegal on Stephen Fitzpatrick's farm, and another on Kilfinney Dairies in Adair on the 20th of May. The farm event in Donegal is the 19th of May. So just to keep that reseeding piece very much in mind. So if you would like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website and the PBI site. And the link to this newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. We'd like to thank all those who support the Grass10 campaign: AIB, Craftsman Agro, Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, FBT and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I'll talk to you all next week when the grass is growing well and the weather is a bit kinder.